Looks like we're live.
We are. Yay. Does anybody want to offer a prayer?
I can say a prayer.
I can. It doesn't matter to me. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll say it. Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day, and we're grateful for all that was blessed us with. We're grateful that we're able to meet as a group to discuss the case study from this past week. And Father, we ask you to please help us to be able to come together as a group to share our opinions and understandings of the case study and help each other to come to understand what we can learn from the things that we read about. And we love thee and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Alrighty. So, the Columbia case it starts out with telling you what happens to the shuttle and how it blows up and upon reentry, and then it goes into like how everything started and how they got to the point where they wanted to start making space shuttles. And then how they kept having issues with like foam breaking off, and then it progresses from there and started to like downplay the importance of the foam strikes, and then it goes on to like explain how people were saying that the foam strikes are important, and people are saying no, they're not, and then the Columbia happens and explodes, and then they're like, well, there's a horrible description of the case, but any thoughts? Anyone want to add to that?
I thought it was really interesting in the case study when it was referring to the foam strikes. It made a reference to, I don't have my document here, but it made a reference to it. Almost they kind of got used to it, and it was almost like they made a comment that it was like playing Russian roulette.
Yes.
Like I found that was really interesting how they said it that way, and kind of like, well, it hasn't hurt us yet, so maybe it's okay or something.
They said that it became an accepted risk, the foam strikes.
Yeah, and then again, I don't want to jump ahead of where we're going to try and get to or anything, but didn't I mention that after everything had happened, they tried to downplay it, saying that the foam actually wasn't the cause of why it happened. They couldn't come to a conclusion as to what the reason was for the failure. So they tried to push the blame away from the foam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely remember reading that in there.
Yeah, it said that they couldn't prove that it was harming or of a harmful nature, I guess. Or
yeah,
so they couldn't prove or deny or whichever, either way. So they just said, whatever, it's fine.
Downplayed the concerns of those he described as foamologists.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the facts of the case?
The facts
that we know.
Well, one fact is that the shuttle did not make it back in one piece.
Yeah,
that's true. That is a fact.
That's true. That is a fact.
Go ahead, Tyson.
There was damage during launch.
Yes. There was also decreased funding to NASA. And as a result of that, there was decreased mitigation that went into the preparation of the launch.
I don't know if I read that. I don't know if I read it that way. I know that there was decreased funding, and because of the decreased funding, they, I think, expanded to include launching military satellites and other things to get more money. Maybe it did. Maybe I missed that, but that wasn't in my. I didn't pick up on that.
If I remember right, it said something about how they were trying to look through the cameras to see how extensive the damage was, and that because they had part of the decreased funding was they didn't upgrade their camera lenses, so they couldn't get a good shot at the.
Okay, I do remember hearing that or reading that.
But I don't know if that. I guess that could make a difference, but at that point, maybe they're already too far into it to do anything about it.
I think another fact that we probably got to mention is just that it was never formally accepted or formally communicated to everyone that it could be a risk of a huge disaster.
Right.
Next question is with Columbia begin.
Can you say that again? I think it cut off for a second.
Oh, sorry. When did the problems with Columbia begin?
Okay.
When did the problems with Columbia begin?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Or the Columbia?
With this particular mission?
Yes.
I would say you could look at it in different ways. I would say that some of the problems began long before launch because of the behaviors of the people at NASA and the bureaucracy and whatnot. The physical impact began, I would say, after launch when a piece of foam came off of the external fuel tank, whatever they call that thing.
Yeah, I think that was an important difference to make, is the actual physical problem and internal problems within management or whoever's dealing with the situation. Because I agree. I think that started a while back with procedures and things that were missing, and then when it actually happened, yeah, definitely after launch.
Because yeah, the procedures or the customs of NASA, the fact that you can't send an email to somebody outside your own little whatever, that's a problem. But that started long before the Columbia issue. But if we're talking about the issue, it would be the foam impact.
Yeah, I agree.
To continue along the lines of the NASA, how would you characterize the culture of NASA, their strengths and weaknesses?
It depends on when it is. If we're talking about it right now,
As a whole?
at this case study,
Yeah.
it sounded like it was pretty sick.
Mhm.
It sounded like lots of bureaucracy, and I'll take the the flip side too, it sounds like there's a lot of people that also don't follow procedures.
Yes.
So in a way, it almost seems like maybe it's a little bit out of control. Although they should have a lot of really smart people there.
They should.
Yeah. Bunch of rocket scientists.
Exactly. And it was the engineers who kept asking for the imagery to get more information to see if the foam actually did cause damage. But it was the higher ups that said no,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't feel it was an issue.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of going right along with all this chain of communication, and then the communication as a whole was definitely a weakness in NASA throughout the case study, because I feel like there was a lack of understanding between different departments, and nobody really wanted to take the time to listen to anybody else, or the chain of communication was kind of broken throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and there was some arguing. I don't know if you guys read through much of that. A lot of arguing about it, and I think that's a real issue. I think if somebody brings up something, hey, this could, and it has to do with safety, I think you should definitely be open. Like there should be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just shut that down. But I just thought that was kind of crazy.
And Tyson, I think what I remember, an argument that I remember specifically, maybe it's the one you're talking about, is after the Columbia has launched, then there's some people that believe that the damage from the foam could be harmful to the rest of the launch, and other people think the opposite. And so one side is saying, hey, we need to try and look into this more, and then the other side is saying, no, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
In the end, I don't think they were able to really figure that out and sort through that.
Yep.
It mentioned that this was the Columbia foam thing was larger. The piece that broke off was larger than the ones that had fallen off in the past.
Oh, that's right.
So that's why they were really like, you should look into this, because they're the biggest.
It also
portion.
hit a different location.
It did.
So rather than hitting the thermal protective system, it contacted the carbon something or other, whatever that thing was.
Lots of technical terms.
I'm getting emails from Derek, and I've been trying to send him a link, but he doesn't seem like he's.
So am I. Trying to get it.
I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
And the thing is, he sent an email, so I responded to the email he sent. But anyway, whatever. What's next?
Who in the case, the people in the case, are contributors to the mission failure? Who would you consider to be responsible for the mission becoming a failure?
Wow. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to point fingers at one or even a small group of people.
Yeah.
I feel like, because that was they've been doing this for years, and this the Columbia has done tons of missions up to this point, and so it's hard to say, oh well, because this has happened before. I think it was just kind of the way it happened that made it an issue. It's hard to put the blame on one group of people. Maybe you guys can help me out with that, but I think also it's the way they handled it when it did happen that was the issue to me.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that if you look at the Space Shuttle Program Exhibit 1, kind of the hierarchy of the thing, the Space Shuttle Safety and Mission Assurance Office probably has some weight in that. And if you look at who's in that, you've got a lot of the names that we saw, Ham and Hale and Dittamore, who I heard Dittamore is a member of the church, but anyway. But then at the same time, you know, who's responsible for the bureaucracy and the way that it all runs? I would say it goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of blame that could be spread out among almost everybody involved, just because I feel like there were points throughout the entire, from far before the launch happened to, you know, the disaster. I feel like everywhere in between there were issues that were handled improperly by different people. And so it's hard for me to say, you know, this person should take more blame than so-and-so. But, you know,
It'd be easier to answer that question backwards. Who's not responsible?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say that the astronauts were not responsible.
there
True.
you go.
Wait, who's driving? Maybe that's wrong. I'm just not even going to go there. Shut up. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh, I kind of feel like there's like so many different things that happened that what Tyson said, that it's really hard to just pinpoint it on one person, because, you know, all the people who said no, that we're not going to get the imagery, the people who kept sweeping the foam strikes under the rug, oh, it's not really an issue, you know, whatever. You know, it's just, I think it's just different people involved that caused the accident, that it's just hard to.
Okay, so if we change the question a little bit, and rather than said who's responsible, who should lose their job? I mean, responsible for, you know, people losing their lives is one thing, but which of the people would you say, if you had to pick somebody in there to lose their job, who would it be?
I'd say anyone hard-headed enough not to listen to those that were saying, hey, this might be an issue.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I'm having a hard time remembering names from the case.
Yeah, a lot of names.
Trying to
You know,
remembering.
even in the people that were kind of raising their hand and raising the issue, Rodney, there was the Rodney Roca. You know, I thought Rodney Roca was pretty much doing a good thing, trying to communicate early and whatnot. But when Roca typed an email but didn't send it, just showed it to the cohorts, you know, to me, I was like, you know, if you really believe something, you gotta you gotta do more than just type an email and then show people and not send it.
Yeah. If they really felt that there was an issue, they should have pushed harder to figure out what if it was an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it was going to cause damage or harm on reentry.
If we even go back and look at the poor guy that wrote that ran the whatever that program was that has some funky acronym. Crater, the guy that ran Crater that wasn't really a Crater certified guy. It seems like to me you get results from a tool if they show, hey, this is terribly bad, then rather than just playing it off, you find somebody that knows how to run the thing and run it to make sure that it's not terribly bad, that you can really count out those results rather than just playing them off. Because it sounds like maybe there was really a crater. Once again, play on words.
Hey, Aaron. I don't know, Derek. It just sounds like he's having a hard time. I don't know if you've already tried this, but there's an icon at the top of your screen with a little plus. If you want to hit that and just try to invite Derek that way. That's the only other thing I can think of. Otherwise, I think it's a problem on his end.
Okay. Sure. I don't see a plus sign. I'm terrible with that.
So it should be, there's like your mic icon.
Oh. Invite people. Oh.
Yeah, see if it works. I don't know.
Let's see. I'm getting his emails. Everyone was talking for a half hour.
Sorry. Don't know what it is.
Looks like he's.
I got too many devices going on here, I think.
Is that me or?
I think he's trying to call us.
What do I do?
Well, see, I can accept his video, and he can join this way.
Is it open? Yeah, there we go. If it works.
Maybe. I don't know. Is he there? Are you there? I don't know. Ongoing call.
I don't know. It's
I don't know
like,
what to say.
I don't know. It says, did you just try to invite me? So did you send him that invite?
Yes. I did.
I've sent him the link.
So have I. I don't know why it's not working for him.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else we can do.
I say we keep going. Send him the link.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be able to get in here.
Yeah.
Do you think that there were certain biases that were for the case?
Biases. What do you mean by that?
On the thing, it gives me like definition. Like there's cognitive biases, confirmation bias. Cognitive is systematic errors in judgment. Confirmation or tendency to look for information that are existing views. Or just regular bias.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of was kind of, we talked about how the upper, I don't even know what to call it, the upper management or whoever was making the bigger calls. I think they, it's possible that they could have been a little biased, because it just, I kind of had that feeling that they were kind of, we know what we're doing. This isn't gonna, there's no issues. We built this. We like, you know, and they're even telling the media that even after it happened that no, there's no way that this is what caused it. So I felt like they were biased in the way that they're almost prideful in what they knew, and were just kind of not willing to accept something that they didn't know.
Yeah, that's exactly the direction that I feel like they took, is they were kind of in denial of thinking and hoping that things would work out, and that if they just stuck through it and waited till the end, that, you know, we know what we're doing. These machines are incredible, whatever is thrown at them, and things will work out in the end, instead of trying to go through and figure out the issues that they were having, whether they were the technical issues with, you know, the foam or whatever it was. I feel like they were just in denial that something would go wrong.
It seemed like there was a culture of, okay, we've already figured everything in the world out. If you think something else is something, you got to prove it. And in order for them to get proof, they needed some camera or pictures, you know, and it's like they couldn't get that because they couldn't prove that they needed it almost. So I don't know if that's bias or not. I guess another thing that kind of played in, it seemed like I think it was Linda Ham, or whoever it is, Ham was going to be the next shuttle, I don't know, director of the next flight. And it seemed like it played into her mind that, okay, we can't have anything that's going to delay this next launch because it's so critical for whatever. And so, I don't know, it almost seemed like maybe that was a bias. It was a bias toward, you know, what we already know is what we already know. So don't try to convince us otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It also, I don't know if this is a bias or not, but it also said in the case, like when they were trying to get approval for the images that they wanted, was that they kind of adopted this nature of like, well, if there is a problem, there's nothing we can do about it now. I don't know if that's a bias or not, but it's kind of like they didn't really even care. And for me, I feel like they lost sight of what was really important, and they forgot that there were 7 people in that space shuttle.
Yeah, that was a big.
You know, because they lost that sight, they lost the mission, and it was a failure, and they potentially killed 7 people.
Yeah, I feel like that was something else that really stuck out to me was, you know, was it the Challenger back in the 80s that they had an accident with? And I think kind of what I noticed leading up to, but mostly after the launch and before the reentry, was that they'd forgotten that there were people's lives that were at stake if this didn't go exactly right. And they just thought that this was, I don't know if they looked at it more as like their test missions or what, but they forgot that, you know, if there's even the slightest mistake with this, there are these people that they could lose their lives, and they didn't recognize or they didn't want to accept that.
You know, by this time, the shuttle launches had become kind of commonplace. And, you know, one thing that talked about a lot in the case study was out of family and in family. You know, what's kind of the usual and what's the unusual. And it just seemed like a lot of people maybe were biased that, okay, foam strikes are in family. This is something that we always have, and it's whatever. But I don't know. Maybe that's an answer to your question about bias. I don't know.
And I kind of feel like the first time it happened, okay, yeah, but like if it keeps occurring, then that should have been like a thing in their head saying, oh, why is this happening? We should figure out why, instead of just saying, whatever, it doesn't really matter, because nothing else has happened from it. So I kind of feel like they kind of dropped the ball a little bit. Like, just because it keeps happening and nothing came of it doesn't mean that it wasn't severe enough for them to figure out why it was happening.
Definitely.
It's true.
Next question. Who do you feel should be held accountable, and why?
Man, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm trying to look through my notes here. Well, one group that I would say needs to be held accountable is the MMT team, the mission management team. So the policy is that they meet every day, and this team met 5 times in 16 days. To me, that's clear negligence. It's against policy. And had they been meeting, this could have played out a whole lot differently. You know, there's some people believe that, okay, there's nothing that they could have done, but they don't know that. They don't know what the condition was. And without knowing what the condition was, you know, how do you know a little bit of duct tape on the front of the thing might not have kept it from going bad? You know, 200-mile-an-hour tape maybe can handle 2,000 miles an hour. Who knows? But I would say that in that case, that was clearly against policy, at least the way that I read it. And I would say that that's negligence. And I'm going to throw them under the bus first.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think even the chief, Sean O'Keefe, should also, to some degree, he downplayed it after it happened. He wasn't willing to stand and say, you know what, it might have been that. We're still looking into it. No, he downplayed it and tried to kind of veer from that. So I think, you know, partially him as well.
I hate to say it, but I'm going to defend that guy just a little bit. I'm not trying to be argumentative. This is respectful, but you know, he's at the very top, and what he gets to say after a catastrophe like this is what he's fed to say.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, I think a lot of times executives are somewhat distanced from what's actually going on. And I'm not saying that he's not responsible in part for the bureaucracy and some of the I don't even know what to call them, the customs or the way that things run in NASA. But with that particular instance that you gave, okay, this big thing just happened. He's got to make a statement. He's getting calls from the Space Shuttle Program Office, and they're saying, yeah, we don't know what happened, but it doesn't have to do with this foam, probably because I remember that there was discussion and there was things in the media about the foam and how they were questioning this and questioning that. And there was some animosity and people watching the shuttle as it's coming in or watching for it as it was coming in. And so I don't know, that would, I'm not saying that he's totally off the hook, but I'd defend him in that particular instance maybe a little bit, because who knows, he's not going to know, what's going on at the front lines. He's in Washington, D.C., and those people don't know nothing. Wait, did I say that out? That was clearly a case where inside word came out. I'm sorry. Who else? Who else we can throw under the bus?
Well, I'm kind of looking at Didymore and Ham. Is that who the other manager was or whatever of the MMT?
So there was Didymore, and he was manager of the Space Shuttle program, but the manager of launch integration was Hale. And then the manager of the Space Shuttle program integration was, so Ham was in charge of Hale was in charge of launch. Ham was in charge of Space Shuttle program integration. And then, it doesn't give us names for the program safety and missions assurance person or the shuttle program development person. But, Ham was downplaying it quite a bit, I think, just because, she wanted her next launch that she's going to be the big boss of to go down smooth.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
so this is kind of an interesting topic. Right now, I'm taking an audit class for accounting, and a lot of what we talk about in my audit class is negligence and just the different types of negligence that happen. That once an auditor is negligent during an audit, they are held accountable and responsible to anything that might be misstated in financial statements after their audit. And when it comes to negligence, legally, if negligence can be shown in any form, whether it's what's the word I'm looking for?
intentional or not.
Yeah, intentional or not. The auditor is held responsible for that. And so I feel like this is just another case of, in some form or another, there was negligence on many different levels of the launch.
Right.
And unfortunately, it was, a fatal ending to the negligence. But I'm having a really hard time narrowing it down to one, because I feel like I do feel like there are some that should be held more responsible than others, but in some form or another, they're what it boils down to is it doesn't matter if the foam really was the cause of the failed mission. What it comes down to is there were lives that were lost, and there were ways to prevent, the foam from happening, whether that's the cause or not.
Well, and I think that there are some people maybe tried to skirt that issue by saying there's nothing that they could have done anyway, but because they were negligent, they don't know that they couldn't have prevented it, right? And that's kind of one of the irritating things about this. So, I look at who are the people that are negligent. Well, it's easy to say that the MMT team or the mission management team were negligent. They didn't follow procedures. But, it goes down to even though I liked Rodney Roca, he didn't go through the proper channels to request photography or imagery, right? Technically, that plays into, okay, I tried to do it some other way and it didn't work. When we don't follow the procedures that are laid out, it's kind of hard to hold upper management responsible because, they're expecting people to follow the procedures that are set in place.
Yeah, that's another thing that I totally understand where you're coming from with that, but also on the other side of that is because they are managers, maybe they should be, maybe they're not there, doing the calculations or whatever it is,
right,
that everyone else underneath them is doing, but in a way they should be responsible for the decisions that are made that come from
overseeing that.
Right.
And they need to be responsible for listening to the people that do the calculations and the experts that know the stuff.
Definitely.
I vote that we beat that one enough. What's the next question?
Sam kind of brought in like his own personal experience with accounting. Are there any other experiences that you guys have that can tie into this place?
Yes, I already posted this online, but I work for Honda, and a few years back, it came to light that Honda had used a particular maker's airbags or the propellant for airbags from a particular maker, and the testing, I don't know if the testing data wasn't exactly right or if it was skewed or what, but it was misrepresented somehow. And basically, when this propellant is about like gunpowder, when you break it down into smaller pieces, it burns faster because there's more surface area. And basically what that ends up doing is, because there's a faster burn, there's a higher pressure inside the airbag module, and the airbag module tends to rip open rather than venting pressure and, making this big pillow in front of your face. One of the things that Honda did as maybe a result of that is that they made this almost like a hotline to the president, right? If you see something going on or something's being done that you believe is not good for our customers or for the company or for safety, you can call straight to the top. Basically it's only to be used if you're not getting a good response or some adequate action from your own management. But if there's something that's really bad, you can use this avenue to go straight to the top. Now, also, if you don't have some good foundation for what you want to do, obviously that's going to make you look bad or whatever. But there's some avenue there, because I think a lot of times executives are shielded, right? They don't really know a lot of the small details going on at the front. They're basically representing what they're told and whatnot. So I would say that's kind of a personal experience that I think that's something that this shows that NASA needs. There needs to be some sort of checks and balances, some way. If you're not getting, some action and you really believe that it's needed, you can bypass bureaucracy and there's hopefully some way for the upper side to answer or look into things.
Anybody else? Do you want to move on to the next question?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, that was a good example. Thank you. Is there anything from the reading that you want to tie into this as well? Not the case study, the book.
Trust book.
Yes.
Well, I would say it's easy to see that NASA lost trust in the eyes of the American public through this, and I'll be honest, I lost a lot of trust in. I've been to NASA several times and been on space shuttles. I lost a lot of confidence in their capabilities.
Well, when I was reading, didn't they shut down options and a lot of things for 2 years after, or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years.
There were only a very limited number of launches of the shuttle after that. The program was pretty much shut down, and so now you can go see one in Washington, D.C. I don't even think Houston has one. There's one in D.C. though, at the new Smithsonian.
All right. Are there any last minute comments that anybody wants to make?
I think I'm good.
Covered.
Yeah.
Okay. So we believe that there's a lot of the failure of the Columbia mission, and that they lost sight of what was really important, and that there were people forward, and that there was a lot of bureaucracy going around, and that they were downplaying everything, that the foam really wasn't an issue when it was, supposedly. What else was I going to say? And so I mean, it was just a lot of things, little things added up to one big explosion, and the Columbia ended up exploding because of negligence and just, I guess, hard-headedness.
Well, and it is totally possible that maybe there wasn't something that they could do.
No,
but
we don't know because they didn't try.
Right.
Alrighty.
Well, as far as the schedule goes, Derek is up next week, and Sam, I think you're on deck after that. I think I just had it up. Yes, indeed. It is Derek, and then Sam. Just heads up.
Perfect.
We may just have to message Derek or something.
Yeah, I can. Well, I might wait a day or two. but we'll get him an email. He's got the schedule. I'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
But maybe I'll send a reminder in a couple days.
Perfect.
Well, cool. Glad we could talk.
Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for coming. I'll,
Thanks.
see- I'll
Anytime.
try and post this to everybody.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
See you guys next week.
Okay.
All right.
Guys.
Talk to you later.
Bye bye.